Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my rotor video today, talking about just my opinion about the different rotor brands and models and which one or ones I think are best. To start off, I'll briefly mention half-inch inlet rotors. I just wouldn't recommend them at all, honestly. Like half-inch inlet rotors are like ones that have the same inlet as a spray body, whereas these ones are all 3/4-inch inlet rotors, or where did it go? 1-inch inlet. But half-inch inlet rotors like the Hunter PGJ, Rainbow 3500, Rainbow 32SA, Orbit Saturn 3, Saturn 4, and K-Rains, K1, and Mini Pro. Those are the main ones. There's probably more, but those are just to name a few. Yeah, those ones I wouldn't recommend. I've just found a lot of them to break faster than like a 3/4-inch inlet rotor or even an MP rotator. So if you need a short radius, then you want rotors like something under 25 feet. There's the two options are either one, go with an MP rotator, or two, go with a Hunter PGP Ultra and use their short radius nozzles. These ones right here. You get 3 18-foot nozzles and 3 25-foot nozzles. They're very reliable. I've honestly PGP Ultras honestly last a lot longer than, same with MP rotators. Both PGP Ultras and MP rotators on a Pro Spray or 1800 even will last a lot longer than a Rainbow 3500 or Hunter PGJ. But yeah, by the way, this is if you're wondering what nozzle I had in the video of my sprinkler video of the end of season tour updated, I did switch the nozzle for a short radius 25-foot nozzle. I think the smallest out of the 25-foot. Is that it? Yeah, the 0.75 one, just like that one. So it should put out, because it's 90 degree. You double, because it's measured for, the precipitation rates are measured for 180, but since it's 90 degree, the precipitation rate automatically doubles. So then it puts out a little over 0.4 inches per hour, which is pretty good. Not too much more than barely too much more than the MP rotator, just 0.0 something difference. So that's a way to use MP rotators and rotors on the same zone. Onto of course you got your Orbit ones onto these Home Depot Lowe's ones. Orbit Voyager 2 rotors, same with their Voyager. I would avoid them. They're better than K-Rain's K1 or K2 rotors, but I don't know, I'd just say that they're cheaper quality. These are more like a design of a regular Hunter PGP, like the PGP 80J. Like you can see there's almost, I think I had a video from years ago showing these exact two heads, but it's very similar design pretty much. But yeah, I would also avoid these ones right here, K-Rain Super Pros, or any K-Rain rotor, especially the K2, K8000, and also the Pro Plus. And also, I think Eartrol had a few variants. There's other variants, like Eartrol had the CR500. Also, there was a Toro Super 800. These ones are known for just sticking up like crazy. I've seen so many of these 20 years pass of a whole system of these. Same with the Eartrols and Toros. Those all stick up after they turn off, so wouldn't recommend these. The RPS rotors, the RPS 75 and 75i are just a copy of a PGP. It's basically a PGP rotor, not like PGP Ultra, but a regular PGP. You don't get like the automatic arc return or non-shippable drive. It's just basic gears like the regular PGP 80J. RPS Select I think that's one of the best rotors for easy to adjust. Either that or the Toro T5. Although the Toro T5 is just, I've heard a lot of people, because of the rapid set feature, we just turn the turret and it adjusts it. I've heard of people I've heard two things. I've heard people complain about those leaking, and I've heard people say that their Toro T5s get out of adjustment a lot. So I don't know. I'm a little skeptical about that. And it's Toro. I've had many troubles with their spray heads and nozzles. But to get down to it. Now, actually, real quick, this is a Toro Super 700. This is back when Toro's rotors were good, but once they replaced this with, I believe the Toro T5 is what why they discontinued this. I don't know. I don't like how these are hard to adjust. Like they require some weird hex tool, but not a Hunter PGP tool, and the arc adjustment piece always falls out. But these are still my grandparents' system is like about 32 years old approximately, and they still got 3 of these still going strong. So yeah, with Home Depot and Lowe's stuff, I'd recommend if you're at Lowe's or Home Depot, try to get a 5000 if you can find ones. But they don't always have 5000, so otherwise you're gonna have to get a Rainbird 42 SA Plus, and you may have to buy nozzles from too, which they use the same nozzles as the 5000. So yeah. Now Rainbird, to talk about Rainbird, I will admit they weren't very good, honestly. I've heard people complain about Rainbird stop rotating. Back when they had the old design, like this is a 42 SA, but same idea. Back when they had like the more circular looking like rubber cover and cap, and they had the light blue nozzles, they were actually known for having gear problems. Actually, there was my grandparents at one point, they had one exactly like this. It was made in 2006. In 2018 or 19, it stopped rotating, so after like 12 or 13 years, it already needed to be replaced. Though they did fix the design. I think the 5000s have the same design, basically just said 5000, but I believe the 5000 ones with the dark blue nozzles, like the ones you have that you'd see currently, the design came out in 2003 or 4 with the slip clutch feature, and then the 42 SAs didn't come out with they didn't redesign these until like 2008, I believe. And I think that I have a 2010 42 SA Plus. It's just like a second generation one, but yeah, it still seems to have the grinding gears. It doesn't have a slip clutch, so I think they were a little. All of my newest, this 42 SA right here does have a slip clutch, so it might have just been a little later of a design, but the 5000 slip clutch, I believe, came out in like 2004. The 42 SA Plus was like maybe 2012 or so, I'm guessing. I don't know. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend buying Hunter rotors at a hardware store because they don't sell PGP Ultras or I20s. You only get the PGP 80J or Hunter PGJ. So yeah, I'd honestly just use Rainbird if you're at a hardware store. Now, if you can get to a professional store, professional stores being like, just to name a few, DBC Irrigation Supply and like in their family of companies. There's a Heritage Plus in their group of companies, and there's or even online ones like Sprinkler Warehouse and Cheap Sprinklers, even Supply House. They don't have as big of a variety, but they have pretty good deals. So places like that, basically if you go to a sprinkler store and they don't have the sticker around them, usually they'll just have like it'll just be the plastic without the stickers around. That's usually the type of store you're gonna want to go to. Anyways, let's just talk about the Hunter's PGP Ultra and I20. The PGP Ultra is one of their most common. That's like their new. The PGP 80J was considered their so-called best-selling rotor. This is their new best-selling rotor. This is like they build the foundation off of the PGP with new features like automatic arc return and non-strippable drive, and also nicer nozzles like the flat top nozzles that are much easier to put in and out. They use the same nozzles as an I20, by the way. And then, of course, we got the I20, wherever it went. Here it is. The I20s, I will admit, they aren't really that. For just getting flow stop and a pre-installed check valve, it ain't worth the extra $5 or so, in my opinion. I just don't think this is really that bang for the buck. In my opinion, that's just what I think. These are still reliable rotors. It's just I don't think they're worth the price. I think 5000 pluses are a lot more affordable. Like I've been able to see 5000 pluses with the PRS and SAM for about the same price as just the I20 with just the check valve, which they come pre-installed. I think it's a standard feature now. But yeah, so in my opinion, the I20s, they're good rotors. I think if you really need flow stop and you want to keep things all 100, then that's when I'd recommend I20s. But in my opinion, I think the PGP Ultras are a lot more worth it. I think ultimately, in my opinion, I think now there's exceptions like with stuff sometimes, but with rotors, I'd say you're gonna ideally want like quantity over extra features. So like you could get more PGP Ultras than for a cheaper price than these I20s. Even though you don't get flow stop, or sometimes you get check valves. It depends, but you don't get flow stop. But you also save a lot more money. So yeah, I think PGP Ultras, and they're still very reliable. People say, oh, PGPs always leak. Well, the only time just to be fair, I've seen so many of those PGP-80Js leak so many times, as well as like the Orbit Voyager 2s. But to be fair though, with the PGP Ultras, I've only seen one of these leak ever, and you don't want to know why? It looked like the rubber cover was destroyed, and it looked like part of the cap was broken off because it looked like it got destroyed by an edger. So for those people that say PGPs leak, make sure you specify, because if it's the PGP-80J or even Orbit, yeah, those always will leak. But the PGP Ultras, I believe, have a different wiper seal design, what they call a no flow-by wiper seal. And I've only seen, the one time I saw one of these leak was because it got destroyed by an edger or something like that. But I'd highly recommend PGP Ultras. These are actually, I don't know, I used to not really like Hunter. Even you may have seen my older videos. Even just a few years ago, I would always bash on Hunter. These are actually, this might be my new favorite rotor, the PGP Ultra. Maybe my new favorite. Honestly, I've seen more 5000s leak, in my opinion. Although, it's like Rainbirds, I've seen more of these leak, but I would say I've seen more of the Hunters, both PGPs, PGP Ultras, and I-20s. I've seen more of them stick up. But yeah, I'd say either one is, you can't really go wrong with either one. The 5000s are a little more friendlier on price than the PGP Ultras, even though it's only like $1 or $2 cheaper, but I don't know. I think the PGP Ultras, I've seen more of these, stick up, but also I've seen more of these stop rotating. The 5000s, people have complained about their gears. Like sometimes if you buy a box of 20, people have gotten bad batches. I've heard of people who've like installed systems of these and they'll have like one or two of them after doing a test winterization, they will stop rotating. So just to like warn you, the 5000s are good. Subclutch feature is nice, makes it a lot easier to adjust and install, but it's like you want to be able to have that really fast install where you can just turn it, line its left edge without having, unscrew it out, versus the PGP Ultras, they have a fixed right edge, but also like when you get these adjusted, they have the automatic arc return, so if someone forces it past its adjusted point, it will go back to, it will remember the exact setting it was at, so it won't be spraying on sidewalks. So between these two, it's like a very controversial thing between Hunter and Rainbird. Like those are the two biggest brands, I've always used Rainbird because overall, I mean, Hunter, this is the next, I still see a lot of PGP Ultras. I mean, this is the most common rotor in my area that I live at, but otherwise, most companies do prefer Rainbird, so that's why I've always liked Rainbird, but I don't know. As I've looked around the city, I've seen a decent amount of Hunters, and I don't know, I think the Hunter PGP Ultras are actually pretty good too. I think definitely better gears. I actually asked my distributor about the two rotors. They said kind of like what I said. They like how the 5000s are easier to adjust, but they do think that PGP Ultras are better for dirty water situations, and because they have like better gears, if you know what I mean. They can handle, with their non-shippable drive and automatic arc return, they can kind of handle the dirtier water better, in my opinion. I've actually from my experience, I've seen more Rainbirds stop rotating in dirty water systems than Hunters. And there's only one Rainbird installed, and it stopped rotating. There were two Hunter PGP Ultras installed. They're both older than the 5000. I think it was a 42 SA from like a few years ago, and it already stopped rotating. The PGP Ultras had date codes of 2018. Both of them are still going strong to this day, last I checked. So yeah. So overall, PGP Ultra is my top pick. Now, it's a hard one. I do think the 5000s do have a little nicer spray pattern, but like they're a little more wind resistant. But yet the PGP Ultras are just, I don't know, something about their reliability I've actually found overall I found these to last a little longer. Like I've just seen more. I've just heard and seen more people install 5000s brand new that are they're bad right as they're installed, whereas the PGP Ultras it seems like these are a little more, I feel like if you buy a box of 20, I've seen more people like just talk about how the PGP Ultras there's not they don't have as many broken ones right out of the box versus the 5000s, is what I'm saying. Now I will say though, if you're wanting top of the line system, then I will actually recommend Rainbird. Get the 5000 plus with the stainless steel with the PRS SAM. These are actually really good. The stainless steel ones, I haven't seen one of these ever leak. These are like tanks. They are pretty pricey. They're about $30. Now, if you look on eBay, I got this one for $20 and it's brand new. It was made in 2025. So if you look on eBay, there will be pretty good deals every so often. Just beware. Some people on eBay overcharge sometimes, but at the same time, some people they'll be able to it'll just like have such cheap prices where it's actually worth where they'll charge less than what's worth. So it will just depend. But yeah, these things very good. Got the check valve. The BGP Ultras, they have a pressure regulated one also. Now I will just warn you. Now for the 4-inch, for both the 4-inch 5000 and a PGP Ultra, there is a difference in height. Let me measure it out. So see, I've got the inlet's pretty close. As you can tell, the PGP Ultra is a little taller. The reason is Rainbird uses the PRS pressure regulated stem, which means the pressure regulation's in the stem. Hunter does it differently though. They use the pressure regulated body. That's why it's called PRB. So if I take this apart, if I can get it. It's interesting is the nice, which is in a way it's like a good way, a good thing in a way with the height difference. I guess you can't really, sorry, you can't really see it. Let me turn on my flashlight actually. As you can tell, that's the pressure regulator in there. So it's built into the body, which means you can do a gut swap of the sprinkler and just put in like a PGP Ultra with that doesn't have the blue. You just put the guts into this canister, and you'll still have pressure regulation because it's built into the canister versus into the stem. So that's one thing I'd consider. There is a height difference, of course, but if you have a buried head and you need to raise it and you don't want to use pipe, because I will admit, there's 1 or 2 times where I've seen like, particularly the flex pipe, or not flex pipe, I mean poly pipe. Now PVC fittings are a lot better, but the poly pipe fittings, especially the Orbit brand ones, they will sometimes snap. So that's just something to consider. So if you want to raise a rotor head, just barely raise it without having to use pipe. A PRB, PGP Ultra, or even an I-20, you can use that and it will raise it up without having to use an extra fitting. So that's one thing to also consider. With 1-inch inlet rotors, my top choice is the I-25. From my experience, I've seen way less of these stick up than the Rainbird's 6504 and even 8005 rotors. Although I will admit the 8005 rotors are my next choice because they have a way better spray pattern. And they're also Rainbird's only vandal-proof rotor they currently have on the market since their 5500 rotor got discontinued. But yeah, 8005 is my second choice, but my top choice is the I-25. And these come in both 4-inch and 6-inch, and they come in both plastic and stainless steel as well as high-speed. Rainbird stopped selling their high-speed 6504 Falcons, and they've never had a 8005 high-speed, so that's another thing to consider. I think just looking at the body, very durable. I like the rib design. It's just like a Pro Spray, like compared to a Pro Spray. You got the little ribbed canister, just really strong. And then I'm gonna show you a cool PGP Ultra. By the way, this is just for the fun of it. Not really have anything to do with the video, but if you want to, I'll actually do a video on this one. Since I got an adapter for my PVC pipe. This is the inner workings of a PGP Ultra. This one was made in 2016, by the way. But I got this special ordered from my distributor from a DBC within DBC's companies. And yeah, I just asked them for it, emailed them, and they were able to get one for me. So really nice rotor. If you ever want to see the inner workings, and make sure you specify in uppercase, all in caps, PGP -04 CS. CS stands for clear sample. And they have it in this one, the check valve, and they have a PRB one. If you want to see a PRB one, then you can order one of those. And they have them in the I-20 and I-25s. You can get a clear version. Even in their Pro Sprays, you can get clear ones of those also. I don't know if Rainbird has clear versions. I've seen them on their videos, but I don't think they have them like necessarily on their parts list. So yeah, but this is a very rare head. A quick note, I'm going to teach y'all how to find a date code on a rotor. So the older PGP Ultras and PGPs, they had you see that 19, that means that's the year it was made, 2019 focus. That's the older design. And then in 2023, Steve Hovland, he sadly passed away a little over a year ago, but he was the product manager of Rotors, I believe. He switched it, so Now you got the cool new design where it has it's like a wheel, so it'll focus. There you go. So you see it's got like a 2.5. That means it's made in 2025. And then you see how it's pointing at the 4. Sorry, an 8. Sorry, I'm just looking off my phone. Couplery. It's pointing at an 8. That's the month it was made. So August of 2025. So yeah, I think I'm probably gonna conclude the video here. But real quick, this is a 5000 SAM. Actually, I will specify one more thing about PGP Ultras. For those of you who say that they don't have a strong enough spring, and that the I-20s are worth it because they have a strong spring, maybe you need to look into one of these. You see the ones with the... So the PGP, if you order one that says PGP-04, or 04, I mean, dash CV, that stands for check valve. You get a check valve, and it actually has a stronger spring, which is... And I'll tell you, these are a lot harder to pop up than the regular ones. And then if you want a check valve one with what they call like a lighter spring, you get PGP-04-check. So instead of CV, you'll say check. Both of those being up all in caps. And that will have the one that's, if you have one that says check versus CV, it will not have that gray ring. It'll just be the standard black, and it will have the regular spring instead of the strong spring. So I'd say, yeah, Rainbird and Hunter, between the 5000s and PGP Ultras, you can't go wrong with either one. I'd say the PGP Ultras are definitely great for schools and like vandal proof, because I will admit, one time at one of my old schools, at my elementary school, there was a kid twisting a Rainbird 5000. They were turning the turret when it was on in the field, and it stopped rotating right then. But the PGP Ultras, it's a lot harder to break the gears, so that's another thing. If you have people that mess with sprinklers, you are going to want PGP Ultras. But yeah, anyways, thank you guys for watching this video, and have a good one. Bye.